Hello, students. This is Saxon Algebra 2, Lesson 66, Part A. The title is Signs of Fractions, and it introduces the three parts of a fraction. Each part of a fraction has a sign, either plus or minus. Let's think about those signs. I have here a product of three expressions, but we're only concerned with the signs. Now, you've already learned that if you have an odd number of minus signs, that the product will be negative, or the quotient. Now, I'm going to flip two of those signs and look what happens. I'm going to flip the first two, and now they're plus, but the product is still negative because it still has an odd number of minus signs. No matter which two I flip, I'm going to flip 2 and 3 now, and I've got, again, I haven't changed the sign of the product. And when I flip 1 and 3, we're back to our original 3 minus signs. An even number of minus signs, of course, will cancel each other out. So if we started with 3 positive numbers and were to do the same thing, flip 2 of them, we would still have a positive product. We haven't changed anything. I'm going to flip the second and third one now. It's still a positive product, but now I have, because you have 2 negative signs that when you multiply them together or when you divide them, they become positive. Fractions are quotients, so these rules apply to fractions as well. You've probably thought of the fraction as having 2 parts, the numerator and the denominator. And that's not wrong. Fractions do have those 2 parts. And of course, the numerator can be plus or minus, and the denominator can also be plus or minus. You've already seen this and used it. Sometimes when you calculate the slope of a line, you end up with a negative numerator and a positive denominator. And I'm emphasizing signs in this video, but usually in algebra, we don't write the plus sign. So these 2 fractions are equivalent, minus 5 divided by 3 as our slope. So those are 2 parts of the fraction. What's the third part? Well, the third part is the fraction itself. And the fraction itself can also be plus or minus. So here's a fraction showing all of its 3 parts. Its numerator, denominator, and the fraction itself. So let's go back to that slope, minus 5 over 3, and put in all the signs. So the numerator is going to be negative, but the fraction itself is positive, and the denominator is positive. So the first important thing about these 3 signs, the purpose of this whole section of Saxon math is, number 1, you can move those signs around without changing the sign of the fraction. I can move this minus sign to the fraction itself, and it's still a minus fraction. I could move that minus sign to the denominator. It's still a minus fraction. We haven't changed the sign of the fraction or the way it would work in the equation of a line. Now, the second important thing, and this is the most powerful thing about the fact that fractions have 3 parts, is that just like I did in the beginning of the video, you can flip any 2 of the 3 signs without changing the sign of the fraction. And I'm going to go ahead and flip the 2 positive signs to negative. Well, now we have 3 negative signs in a quotient. So the fraction, the quotient, is still negative. I can flip them back again and get one negative sign, negative quotient. I can flip numerator and denominator. One negative sign, negative quotient. We're going to see this playing out in the two examples, and it's very powerful and it will be an important thing for you to master in solving problems. So to sum up, in this video, you learned that fractions have three parts: the numerator, the denominator, and the fraction itself. You learned that each part has its own sign, and you can move the signs around to make the fraction convenient for your problem. Finally, and most important, you learned that you can actually change the sign of any two of the three parts without changing the sign of the fraction. I hope this video helped you to understand these concepts. See you in the next video.